Well, good morning, everyone. As you can see behind me, it's still pitch black here in Finland, even though we have moved beyond the darkest day.
We would like to see your screen, Michael.
Oh, would that be good? Is that better? Wait a second.
I
Hold on.
see it.
Do you see the screen?
I do see it.
And Michael, do you see the screen? I hope so.
No, I do not.
Okay, so now
But
this.
I do see.
Wait.
I
No,
do see it.
show screen is paused. Okay, should be better now. It says
Friedrich sees the screen, but it is very large.
yeah, there is a large font at the moment, which I'm going to cut down shortly. So anyway, we will. We've been off of this program for a while because of the festival of the new group of world servers. Very important. And we've also been planning a kind of esoteric support for the United Nations over the next 5 years or so. We're calling it the Esoteric United Nations. Of course, it's possible that there would be many such efforts. And we're just talking about one such effort. So anyway, the idea here is with meditation and mantrams and some knowledge of the status, the state of the various countries of the world to evoke as much of their soul ray and or soul astrological sign as may be possible. And we're just getting started on that. So if you have perhaps an interest, there's a pledge to be made for kind of a daily few minutes every day where we tune in on a particular nation from a spiritual point of view. So if you are interested, just write to Tuya and or me and Michael, if you have our emails, just put it in the chat box. And if you don't, just let me know and I will do that. Well, okay, look, we're talking about brotherhood now. And DK goes back to the child state of the human race in a primitive condition. And we're doing something on a higher turn of the spiral than was done at that time. Okay, wait a second. Something strange is going on. So, yeah. So we're going to be establishing upon a higher turn of the spiral that spiritual relationship which characterized the race in its child state, its primitive condition. And then, just hearkening back to those times, which probably we all experienced, whether we were Earth humanity or whether we were coming in from the moon chain. And of course, so many of Master DK's students probably did come in from the moon chain. Then, under the wise guidance and the paternalistic attitude of the hierarchy and the initiate priests of the time, men knew themselves to be one family. Excuse me. a family of brothers, and achieve this through a feeling and developed sensuous perception. Thank you, Michael. And today, under the name of brotherhood, the same idea is seeking mental form and the establishment of a renewed spiritual relationship, the idea, through training in right human relations, the ideal. And this is the immediate goal of humanity, brotherhood. Now, when you look at the age of Aquarius, Saturn, as the ruler of the first decade, with all of its stresses and its difficulties, will prepare humanity for a lighter, brighter time. Brotherhood can easily come in the second decade under Mercury and Gemini, because that would be the sub-sign. First Aquarius, then Aquarius Gemini, with its rulership by Mercury. And we know that especially features the two brothers and the alternation between them, between the pairs of opposites. But then finally, in the Libra section of Aquarius, I'm sorry, I obviously have morning voice here. It was a very late night again. So, we do what we can. So under Libra, Venus is the ruler, and the love wisdom aspect is introduced into the interplay, and then a wide scale of brotherhood can occur on a higher turn of the spiral than in ancient days, and this is what we look forward to as the immediate goal of humanity. Okay, that's a little bit that's a little bit of a review, you might say, because after a month away, and we will again, have that kind of that kind of situation where a month or two will pass, because the 34th, or is it 35th, 34th conference is coming up in Chandler, Arizona, with an important fourth race theme, which is so much more than just the arts alone. Now, so here we go. We'll do a little bit of reading, and I'm with you in not having really looked at this in a while. So let's see what happens off the top of the head here. And let's see, I'll make this, yep, there we go. Okay, this result will be inevitably brought about by means of the cycle of necessity. Now, don't you just feel whoopsie, don't you just right there feel Saturn when such words are used? The cycle of necessity. Nobody escapes from Saturn, and at least not permanently. The cycle of necessity through which we are now passing, because we have entered the first sort of antechamber of the Aquarian age, which will, according to the Tibetan, take technical form in the year 2117. Okay. through which we are now passing, and the dimly sensed idea will. And now watch this, because this is not easy. As a result of dire necessity. Well, I dare say this is what we're going to be dealing with. As a result of dire necessity, will impose its rhythm upon the race, and thus force the realization of true being upon all men. Well, it sounds like a dire method to achieve a very high goal. If the realization of true being can be forced upon, well, even many men, this will be a great step forward. And of course, in our work with identify as being, that's what we're trying to inculcate in the group members that come along, the realization of true being. If a close study is made of the basic foundation of all the ideologies without accepting any, it will be discovered that this idea of integral relationships, often distorted in presentation and hidden through wrong methods, of spiritual objectives, and of definite, positive, brotherly activity lies behind every outer form. Now that's quite a statement. Brotherhood is just waiting to precipitate under those two planets, Mercury and Venus, which when united create a very beneficent situation. And there's a triangle there between those three. In other words, I'm including the Earth, with the Earth representing the physicality, Venus representing, redeemed Kama Manus, or the redeemed condition of the astral body of humanity, and of course, Mercury representing the mind. I have used the current situation as an illustration of the idea taking form as the ideal. I've used the current situation as an illustration of the idea taking form as the ideal. And alas, a rarely used word by the Tibetan, and alas, brother of mine, oft becoming the idol and the fanatical, misunderstood, and overemphasized goal of the masses under the guidance of some pronounced idealist, and all the worse if a demagogue as well. I'm going to sort of put that in. When I was calculating the rays of Hitler, I came to the realization that though there was a tremendous fourth ray there, I think in terms of the mind, the personality was really upon the sixth ray. It was Churchill who had the fourth ray personality, not Hitler. I'd made a mistake in my original assessment. But when you combine Ray 1 and 6, you do get potentially a very destructive fanaticism that will sacrifice everybody and everything to its particular objective. And that's exactly what happened in the long run. And he was led to comfort his megalomania by saying, Germany was not worthy of me. What are you going to do with a mentality like that? Okay, so integral relationships are being pursued, often wrongly, but they do lie behind. A brotherly activity lies behind every outer form. And in what way are we brothers? Brothers, sisters, maybe one day we'll come up with the right word there. We are monadically so. That's the true realm of the brotherhood at the moment. So from that high realm, ruled by Jupiter and by Neptune and by Virgo and by Pisces, the true brotherhood comes. Thank you. Yeah, my Julia just gave me some tea here. Maybe it'll help with this frog of a voice. We'll see. I have used the current situation, and unfortunately, it can become the idol, and the demagogues can rule. Okay, an ideal is a temporary expression of a basic idea. It is not intended to be permanent, but simply to serve a need and to indicate a way out of the past into a more adequate future. Isn't that? We in Master DK, with Master DK, we learn the wholeness of an idea. We learn it in parts and pieces through different books, different references, different sentences. I find this very good. An ideal is a temporary expression of a basic idea. An idea is a living being. We've learned, and in a way, each of us is fundamentally an idea within the one being. This ideal, it is not intended to be permanent, but simply to serve a need and to indicate a way out of the past into a more adequate future. And then, of course, it will be filled in by ever higher ideals, more adequate. So let us not, as the very pure sixth-ray types do, inordinately cling to our ideals, because by doing that we will guarantee a very, very partial look at the truth or understanding of the truth. All the present ideals expressing themselves through the current ideologies, so back in those days, communism, still democracy now, monarchy to a degree, socialism, Those are, I think, the principal political ideals, and they can also be applied to other areas, such as religion. What is the source of salvation? Is it faith? So many people cling to that idea. Is it works rather than faith? And others, more pragmatic, choose that approach. Or is it somehow both? And we could go into every area, the economic area as well, and we would see whether we have a liberal kind of financial policy, or we just believe in sort of a financial Darwinism, if you will, survival of the fittest. It is an ideal pursued by some, and ungenerously, but then of course it's possible to make weaklings out of people, out of children, even out of people, by giving too much. And as Master Moria has said, whoever gives all puts on chains to the one to whom the gift is made. So all the present ideals expressing themselves through the current ideologies will serve their purpose and eventually pass away, as all else has passed in the history of the race, and will give place eventually to the recognized spiritual relationship, a subjective fellowship as a defined and expressed brotherhood. Okay, all else has passed. I just want to emphasize that. I mean, I'm thinking about some of those, various religious approaches, the rites of Mithra. Thank God they're no longer with us. Roman soldiers engaged in these rites back in their heyday. And, you couldn't go through such a ritual unless you were absolutely covered with blood. So it's a far cry from what goes on in the idealism of the various churches and temples today, but things were more primitive then, and that has left its impress upon us, but is no longer with us. As far as the return of the oracles go, they will return, but will they have to sit above the rising fumes of gases that promote hallucination and maybe understanding of some deeper level? Well, maybe not. Maybe there will be other methods, but the methods of the oracles, will be with us. Okay, so we will have, and we're coming upon, after going through dire necessity, and some of that maybe was written even before the World War II. I was just looking at sometimes at night, and Tui and I tend to stay up quite late. There's so much to do. I just say, well, it must be, it's disaster time for TV. So, in National Geographic, which is normally quite a good source to see how things were and are. All of those battles in the South Pacific, in the Indochina area, and on the islands, they were shown, and they were just horrible. And to see how people treated each other in those days, anything but brotherhood, absolute contention of one nation against another, one race against another, fanaticism. Well, that fanatical scorpionic approach to the sixth ray has subsided, he said, I think from the year 1946, and the fanatical heights of that kind of engagement no longer are with us. But it would have been an awful place to be, and maybe some now alive have been under those extremely stressful circumstances following out the results of fanatical idealism. What does DK say? It's almost humorous. He says, we do not choose for our present company or from our company for our company. There's an adjective there, something or something fanatics, uneducated fanatics, stupid fanatics, ignorant fanatics, something like that. Because fanaticism will go along with ignorance, and as sort of a last-ditch attack of those forces that is now occurring, we're seeing a lot of ignorant fanaticism. It's a huge danger. We saw what it did in Germany, and we are told, wisely, I think, that Nazism was more even a religion than a political movement. Really, in a way, it was both. So anyway, the spiritual relationships are coming, and these will produce, when sufficiently developed and understood, a form of control and guidance and a species of government which it is not possible for even advanced thinkers at this time to grasp. Well, that's very encouraging as we live through difficult times. Now let's see if right. Sometimes there are all these little tricks that someone who knows the program well can engage in. I'm not one of those. Now this is really interesting. Really, really interesting. Maybe I'll just kind of read it, and it'll be the last thing that we study this morning. I do like the idea of study before meditation. At DK later in the arcane school work said, look, you have to study X much every day. And your studies can be an anticipation of the meditation in which you engage. So, I'm really believing in deep and comprehensive study to enrich our meditation and to point to where the service impulse can best be applied. I think in the arcane school, it came down to about an hour a day that was advised, but I would find in my own life at certain times that 10 hours a day were not enough to really absorb the treasure that Master DK has given us. Okay, when ideals and mental concepts and formulated thought forms dominate the mind of an individual, a race of humanity in general, to the exclusion of all perspective or vision, and to the shutting out of the real, then they constitute an illusion for as long as they control the mind and the mental life. So we have another definition of illusion, and I'd like to spell that correctly. Okay. So those concrete-minded fixations following the usual fifth-rate tendencies of the mental body, these can lead us into great misunderstanding. They prevent, and here we come to the future, they prevent the free play of the intuition with its real power to reveal the immediate future. Now think about that. How do we know what lies ahead and what should lie ahead according to the divine plan? Well, it is a type of intuition, not necessarily the full intuition of the fourth subplane of the Buddhic plane, but something reflected from that area into the soul. So, these preventative concretions, well, they're one of the reasons that the new esoteric schools have to exist, to break up that wall of concrete in the middle of which so many people do their thinking. So it says here they frequently exclude in their expression the basic principle of the solar system, love, through the imposed control of some secondary and temporary principle. So, as so often is the case, man pursues the non-essential instead of the essential. And here's one of those clouds, not such a nice one. They can thus constitute a, quote, forbidding dark cloud of rain, which serves to hide from view the, quote, rain cloud of knowable things, close quote, to which Patanjali referred in his final book. That cloud of wisdom, which hovers over the lower mental plane and which can be tapped and used by students and aspirants through the free play of the intuition. So let's not be trapped in concrete-minded, intractable, unchanging, inflexible, rigid illusion. Let's not be trapped in that way. I think we get the idea. Okay, so this is going to be the end of well, let's see, how did we do that before? Yeah. Okay. and whatever page we're on. And this is
It's page 135.
135, Michael. And what reading is it? Did you have that there?
It's reading number 79, webinar 139.
End of webinar 139, reading 79. And what am I leaving out? Anything here? And webinar 139, reading 79. And next time, in a week or so, beginning of webinar 140, reading 80. All right, we're slowly making our way, and that will be page 135, I guess. We're still, oh, did you say page 135 or 139? Yeah, 135, not 130.
135, yes.
Yeah, that's it. Very good. Thank you so much. All right, very good. All right, friends. So now, according to what you have heard and what you've thought about here, you have a little opportunity to make statements or ask questions about these things, or in general, I try to just open up the whole field of occultism, because, you can never tell when you'll have a chance to ask a question or make a statement, and since everything leads to everything else, anything goes. But basically, we've looked a little bit at illusion, the partiality of ideals, the treacherous combination of the concrete fifth ray and sixth ray together. We've looked at brotherhood existing long ago and trying to re-exist now on a higher turn of the spiral. Trying to see whether some of this tea can help. We've also talked a bit about the cycle of necessity, so Saturnian, in which we find ourselves. And DK has told us, and I don't know, when we get all rosy and anticipatory about the coming Aquarian age, we have to remember that the first 720 years or so of it are difficult. Difficult in what way? Well, the whole thing about sharing is going to come to the fore. And of course, it's going to be a lot about sharing water, which is already showing itself as a sub-motive behind many military acts. So if you have any thoughts which you would like to bring forward at this time, and I should have welcomed you all, but hi everybody. And okay, the Zoom is big. I mean, literally, Kim, sharing water, yeah. When Saturn rules the decanate, it's never going to be easy, but the results will be in line with the plan, and that is what DK seems to be proposing. But I do mean literally the sharing of water, and I guess I mean sharing in general. DK tells us somewhere that a group of first-degree initiates on the seventh ray, i.e., whose soul is the seventh ray, will help to straighten out the financial inequalities and to rightly distribute those things by which humanity lives. That's going to be quite a battle because we all know how selfish we can be and how very selfish are the aspirations of so many people who think strictly in financial terms. You know, and I would imagine, I don't know, Kim, I think you're from Australia, and what's going on down there with this such uh, almost out of control, but not quite, and sad and destructive fires due to many factors, but certainly Australians will be among the first to look into climate change. If you live in New Zealand, it's not quite the same thing. It's a more lush environment. Yeah.
Kim writes that she does reside in New Zealand and that many countries are buying up water rights in New Zealand and Australia at the moment.
Well, then we see the selfishness coming to the forefront because, you know, it's going to be self-protection. Well, Aquarius is an air sign, but, you know, when you look at it, water of life am I, and there are all kinds of energies which have to be wisely distributed in order to have a healthy body. You can only imagine in your own physical body if there were areas that the natural vitality circumvented, they would be left into some kind of necrosis. You know, they would be left into some kind of diseased and gangrenous and unstimulated uh, condition. So, ideally, in Aquarius, the waters of life, which are not just the waters, but also the vitality of life, has to flow to everyone. And this will have to be realized, and no doubt there will be so many realizations coming in under the first 700 or so years when Saturn rules. And you're in China at the moment. Okay. Okay.
And Fred Friedrich
Oh,
writes,
okay. I'm wrong. But China is buying this up. Yes. Okay.
yeah,
Now I get it. Yeah.
and Friedrich writes, the cycle of necessity is quite automatic. So destiny seems to be our sole focus. Of course, soul duties can be difficult to discover for a human.
Well, you know, thank you, Frederick. Saturn is our friend and is the planet of discipleship, and the personality rejects that kind of guidance. But, you know, Saturn has done some very benevolent things. And one thing it did, of course, we can't really understand the mechanism of it, just the idea of it. It created a bridge between the previous major solar system. Note I use the word major or maybe minor, but this is a major one, to this present major solar system, and allowed those who were trapped in the decay, the disintegration of that previous solar system to make their way uh, to our present solar system based on love. And that is reflected in the moon chain, earth chain relationship. Now, here in our moon chain, earth chain relationship, we know that the entity who was the source of guidance on the moon chain is in a sense, has in a sense moved its focus to the earth chain along with the usual earth chain chain lord. So we have quite a complicated situation in our fourth chain. It's not just clear sailing with those who are stimulated by certain softer energies. We're carrying with us all of that which was intelligence gone wrong, if I can put it that way. So we are definitely under the benevolence of Saturn, the law, and the destiny, if you will. And Saturn will not let us get away with that which would eventually destroy us. So we can be grateful, maybe not at first, but later. We will be grateful when we see all of the existential mishaps and worse from which Saturn saved us. And thus it is in your own life, in your own Saturn position, where you are forced to do certain things and later see the benefit of it. Okay, and here is, I got it.
Perhaps Friedrich would like to talk about this Japanese term.
Would you like to say something, Frederick? Or are you, there you go. Okay, so there, whoop, there you go.
Yes. Good morning,
Good,
gratitude.
good morning.
Yes, there is a special term called ikigai in Japanese, which is very related to human soul purpose. I just discovered recently because it happened that I met some Japanese immigrants in Brazil who lost their soul purpose. And I couldn't define the term, but I discovered there is this term, ikigai, which is really soul purpose. And for these Japanese, one could be to link them or to come back to Japan to link with their ancestor. So to recreate the link with their soul purpose and duty.
Thank you, Frederick. You know, I think it's not only to the rising sign that we look for soul purpose. It's really the whole chart, really, in any one incarnation. And I think that we have to give a special focus to Saturn when studying the chart and our rays and so forth, to link with that which will guide us wisely through this incarnation and help us not make a waste of it. So yes, it's very interesting what you're bringing forward, and may we all have a clearly defined sense of our incarnational purpose, and for people like ourselves in line with the divine plan. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, Frederick. Okay, what else? Other thoughts, other statements, other questions that may be coming up?
I would like to present that in my studies, love is not just a solar system principle, but it's a universal law.
And I think, of course, you are correct in that. It's one of the major divisions of what happens when the unitariness or the oneness of the universal logos begins its subdivision into the three aspects. And we could search the very highest strata of any of our universes, and something akin to love or being love, something which is cohesive and harmonious would be found on that level. And then, of course, it has to make its way down through all of the strata. And we've just been given the tiniest little view of how many strata must be passed through. Right now, we're pretty low, and there's not much more. As a matter of fact, I think for the human monad, there's really nothing more into which to descend. And the return journey has been commenced. But I think as we go, we will find it amazing what the way of higher evolution presents to us in terms of our far-reaching possibilities, which we may re-recognize as that through which we descended. So a universal law, yes.
And who knows, the cosmic planes may be only the lowest of 10 realms of whatever.
I think so, 10 dimensions. Yes. And it depends on how we, I think it's 1084 in your Cosmic Fire book, somewhere in there, about the 10 dimensions of cosmos. And how we name them is very, very important. But one thing is for sure, the big map that we have on page 344 or so of Cosmic Fire is really not the end by any means, but closer to the beginning or the middle than to the end. And of course, DK being a practical teacher, how much can he give us when we can't even assimilate what it takes to control the personality, the astral body, or the mental body? So he stretches our mind a good deal, but did not go beyond what he calls a cosmic parabron. And of course, we don't know how to link that to the structures of which we have become aware in our universe. So thanks for the thought, Michael.
And Rebecca has her hand raised.
Okay. Rebecca.
Hello, Michael. And we have all three founders of Dissipation of Glamour Initiative today. We've got Olivia and Tuya and Michael. And so it's an opportunity to thank all three of you for this wonderful initiative.
Yeah, well,
as difficult and confronting as it is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Very hard work.
Yes, yes.
Stay with it.
I'm sure
Michael,
we're all grateful on that point. Yeah, go ahead,
yes.
Rebecca, go ahead.
In regards to, well, we're all still coming off festival week, and I think we all agree that there has been a profound shift, if not a quantum leap, in the esoteric community who participated in Festival Week. And certainly the cohesion, the precipitation of silence as action, that love, unification, service and sacrifice over the entire year that culminated in Festival Week. I was wondering if you, Michael, or anybody else on the call senses an effect that may have had on the dissipation of world glamour.
It's early days. First of all, I'll share my perspective, and then anybody can share theirs. We're deep in the midst of heavy glamour, and we're in the midst of a kind of immorality which has not been seen for a long time. And I almost want to say, since the days of Rome, where
Yeah.
we're in the midst of a kind of dismissal of the good by powerful forces. But at the same time, the willingness of the new group of world servers, and of course we would only know about some of them, so let me just focus on those who are esoterically inclined and are supposed to occupy a fairly elevated place within the servers. I think that has received a great stimulus, and the willingness to work together, to find out what everybody is doing, to come together in various groups and enrich each other, has received a great stimulus. And I want to just say that the 2025 initiative with Alexander and Katya and their co-workers have done a terrific job. And there's also been an extension of the arcane school work, not directly out of the arcane school, but at least the arcane school people in the life bridge work that they're doing, and all over, Australia and Europe and Russia and just all over. I wouldn't even want to begin to try to identify these things, as they've been going on. But the degree of integration will help us undermine, as we're trying to do even right now, the causes of the glamour. So I'm optimistic for a weakening of the glamour. And sometimes when I look at the kind of evidence that is being presented in public forums, indicating the nature of cover-ups and deliberate hiding of important material, I say, in a way, it's already at work. I saw this even happening yesterday, and I said, my goodness, look what's emerging here. And of course, certain people who are immoral about it, they're just going to tough it out and their man is going to win. But that cannot persist. So I think, I'll just say this, we are strengthened. That's all. And there will be...
Excellent to hear. I wanted to especially ask you because of your pragmatism.
You're probably the only person in the world ever to accuse me of pragmatism. Okay.
Michael, do you hear me?
My wife is laughing. Oh my goodness.
Yes, come here. Oh, good.
I saw you and Heidi do a performance of your different perspective on the same astrological
that
chart.
was fun. Yeah, that was fun. We'll maybe do that one time again, but of course that was extreme. But I try to learn from the people around me, about what pragmatism really is. And I think in the last analysis, I am ultimately a pragmatist. It's got to work, It's got to work. We can have all kinds of fond extensions of thought, but ultimately it has to show up and make a difference. So I go on record as saying that, yeah, I admire that pragmatic approach. And of course, my wife teaches me a lot about it, and my associates in the Moria Federation and all around. I'm always on the lookout for a good pragmatist who also knows their esotericism. Now those two things together, that's the thing, finding those two things together. Yep.
Can I say something?
Yes, dear.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you for this question because it is really serious question. And
Yes.
my thought is about that, or my thoughts are about that, that before we learn, if we think about this whole glamour meditation, how precise it is, how it directs us to go step by step. And we have to see in coming months how we've been able to set any situation at the moment, because the group has to be also conscious, very conscious when we talk about these kinds of things, that we are able to dissipate the world glamours. And when we look these three, the most important nations for whole humanity, what has happened to Russia? So now there has happened that Putin has been set forth new ideas. The government has been resigning. What is happening in UK? What is happening in United States? We see that in every single country, the forces of, if I don't say that the forces of materialism, but at least forces of going backwards are winning, or they are really strongly emphasized. And we have so few years anymore the era of the forerunner. What it tells that those nations, what should be the leading nations for whole humanity, they have been holding back, and they have been putting their emphasis to go backwards. That is not good sign. But the power of the festival week was very real. But still, that is not enough that we are able to come together. We have to learn as disciples in the groups to become really conscious that we can make the change. And now it means that to use these energies, we have to focus together. So it's not enough that we kind of thinking here and there. No, we have to start to work in inner planes, the way that we focus together and we turn together the group mind to really start to make the rip into the veil. So this is my opinion, that we have not been doing yet what is needed, because I think that the danger around us is really much bigger. We have to think what it means in future terms, when these three nations has all turned their backs, if I put it in this way, turn back to Christ and turn back to real future development. There are wonderful things in the world. That is not the case, but because we have to look what these three nations are doing and what kinds of powers are holding the future steps. So it's not nice picture what we see. And for me, that's alarming. So we have to just strengthen and come together more and really start to discuss very serious sense that we take a part now in conscious ways to these activities and actions what we do during these only 5 years to go.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you very much, Tuya. Coming back to the Glamour Initiative today, I kept thinking before enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. After enlightenment or after festival week, chopping wood and carrying water. It's back to work and it's business as usual, and it is a dangerous point in a way of resting on our laurels or feeling that idealism and positivity will get us through. But what you're speaking of is very, very serious. And a very good reminder. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
there's one about there's another one along that line, Rebecca. It's before enlightenment, the mountain. During enlightenment, no mountain. After enlightenment, again, the mountain. So, we can look at things sensorially in a similar way, but the understanding and the perception are entirely different. And that's some of what we're trying to do as we attempt to induce the registration of being in the midst of multiplicity when we have this identification of being webinars, courses online. The masters are pragmatists. They see it, but at the same time, their understanding is of things which normal people are not yet registering. So we want to join them in registering the substratum. So thank you.
Michael.
Yes, dear. Yes.
Is just a little note about that. In that subtle sense, what we ought to learn, DK talks about the discrimination, and he says that I'm not talking about discrimination, that we are able to distinguish between the bad and good, or evil and good forces. I'm talking about those subtle things, that are we able to recognize the silence in the speech? Are we able to recognize the qualities, the subtle qualities? If we meet any person, do we recognize the quality of the soul? Do we recognize the quality of the vibration of the nuclear world servers? And he continues and continues. What it means for us now, that when we have these subtle worlds, now we have to learn how do we affect together as unified groups, as unified alliance, the vibrations which these forces are generating. And how strong are the vibrations in any single country which are bringing the energies of hierarchy. And this is where we have to put now emphasis, that we all learn to recognize the vibrations, how they are moving into the world of glamours, and we are able really to hold these vibrations of the hierarchy and the Christ. So that's why this is something what we are putting the emphasis in our initiative of the Esoteric United Nations, that we try now to cultivate ourselves, that we could be a stronger tool.
Right. Okay.
Could we please have perhaps in the chat box the next couple of dates for the you're holding a couple more webinars in preparation for the forming of the.
Yes, on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. GMT will be a webinar. It can only last about an hour and a half or so, maybe an hour and 45 minutes. We may have to have a few others. And we'll try to. I don't know, Michael. I don't think you can get in to give the. Maybe I can do it right here, or can anyone do that? I see it right here.
That's all right.
Here it is. Here it is. Now, if I can just get you the link. The people are interested. There's two kinds of pledges that we are making, or oaths, if you use an even more serious word. And one is an external one, which basically says, okay, look, we're going to be thinking about a different nation every day, and we're going to be spending a few minutes to invoke the soul of that nation. But of course, a lot of study will go along with it over the years, and we'll learn more and more. The other is your own private internal 12 minutes, and that you know, we can actually talk a little bit about the wonderful things that have been done with silence over this past week. I think, Livy, you may have some things you want to tell us about that. I've heard some very, very good things. Now, I'm going to the chat box, and in the chat box, I'm going to press this webinar, and this will take us to the 6:30 Saturday webinar, where some of the people who did not have a chance yet because in a way we kind of give our pledge before all the group brothers and sisters, okay? And then, wait, oh, that's the dog. That's Sophie.
Yeah,
She's
I'm
giving,
sorry.
Sophie is giving her
I'm sorry.
pledge, okay? She's the
Okay,
most,
I wanted to point out, remember the ingress to
yeah,
Aquarius
and we're
that
going
time
to look
too.
at that ingress. Michael, Stacy tipped us off on that. Some important things are happening in the early Aquarius, so we'll be looking at that too, and we'll give everybody a heads up. So right there,
There's a number of things happening next week.
right,
with the ingress into Aquarius, and then the new moon on Friday, which may or may not. If you do that, then it would affect the Treatise on Cosmic Fire webinar, and perhaps the Dissipation of Glamour webinar too.
Well, we're finding that we're quite loaded with what we're trying to present. But thank you, Michael, for a good reminder there. And thank you,
And
Rebecca.
we still have 3 hands raised.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see.
Frederick,
Yes.
and then Vera, and then Karen.
Okay. So let's start with the ladies. And Vera, you go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Tuya, for your comment about the 3D, about those 3 so-called leading nations going actually in the opposite direction. Very good. But I just want to share my personal experience during the week of the new group of world servers. In one of those webinars, sort of my natural opposition kicked in, and I felt like, well, the group of the servers who are in the sort of doing the inner work, meditative work, linking with the hierarchy also, well, anybody can meditate. It's easy, and who is going to do the hard job? And okay, then we had, later on, we had our study group of esoteric psychology, and we read that day the law of magnetic impulse. And it literally hit me. And it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, yeah, finally I got it. Because that's about that first building that group unity on the soul level. So that was such a profound, that was on the energy level. It wasn't just, oh yeah, now I understand the mental concept. So that was, I think that law it's still sort of vibrating within me, and that actually led me to immediately say to, yes, I want to be part of the esoteric United Nations. So that law is just magnificent.
Okay, Vera, if you have not written us yet, just please, just a tiny little note. And if you have not, if you have, everything's good. Okay, because we try to collect the notes and make sure we don't miss anybody, as there's quite a bit coming in, and you know, the possibility of missing someone does exist. Okay.
And Rebecca is asking for which book and page number is Vera referring to?
That's esoteric psychology too, right, Vera?
Yes.
Do you have the page numbers?
I don't know, slightly over 113 or something like that. And then I listened actually to Michael, your recording about this law. in the previous webinars. So yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never. So many times we sort of read about it or was referred to without really any understanding of it.
Yes,
So,
you know, it's amazing how and when things can hit you. I'm remembering my early study of the very law you're speaking of, and how over the years understanding has been added. Maybe not in such a lightning stroke like you had, but definitely there's a difference as we continue to study these things and the laws. I think I've done commentary on all the laws, even the last two, about maybe which too much should not be said because it's beyond us, you know. But at least up to the law of group progress, uh, there's a lot to think about for people such as we are. Thank you, Vera, and very happy to hear that. Very happy to hear that. Okay. Now I'm trying to figure out.
Karen.
Yeah, Karen. Wait. I'm coming in there. And yes, you're green, Karen. You're good.
Okay. Well, I thought many comments have been interesting, but I wanted to just say, to speak to the serious, somber silence in the U.S. Senate today as our senators took an oath to be open-minded and hear the evidence in the impeachment case. You know, I watched it and well, it touched me deeply because I think this is such a serious moment. And what Tui is talking about, work with us as a group now, the new group of world servers working on the inner planes. This is, to me, it's the most important thing to be doing. And I just would comment too, tonight I heard Lawrence Tribe, who is, you know, a lawyer and a Harvard law professor, who was the teacher of the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who is going to be overseeing all of this, speak. And he was saying that it's so important to see all the evidence that would shed light, listen to the relevant facts to get the truth, and find a consciousness in the sound of silence.
There we go again.
Yeah, I thought that was
There
very beautiful.
we go
So
again. Yeah, and
yeah, yeah.
Excellent. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna about that. Okay, there was Frederick here, but then if Livy, if you're willing to say something about this silent, uh, the work with silence. I heard some very big numbers about people participating in this, and it sounded like it was a great success. So the thing I'll do at the moment is go over here to Frederick, who was one of the three who had his hand up. And let's see if I'm correct, Frederick. And let's see. Okay. Okay, and thank you very much, by the way. Appreciate that you are sending this ebook, and there are other things that you're sending as well. So, oh yes, look, you're saying quite a bit about the ikigai diet and so forth. All those things that assist in the aligning with soul purpose. So you're getting to be quite specific about this, and we appreciate you sharing this. Okay, if there was.
He is self-muted and he has his hand raised.
Okay, well, do you
It
want
just
to,
went down.
if you don't want to say anything, it's okay because you've written quite a bit. So whatever you would like there. I can only go on a little bit more. Livy, are you there? Do you want to say anything? Or maybe you're not there anymore. Yeah, there you are. Would you like to say anything about this silence initiative? I know you were involved with it. Or maybe it just speaks for itself. I don't know. But there you are. You're green now. Go ahead. You can speak now, Livy. provided your mute is not on or something like that, because from here you're good to go if everything is good with your computer. Must be something either about the headset or the sound on your computer, something like that, right? Because we would have enough to hear you. But I just heard it was, there we go.
While Livia
No.
is sorting that out, Frederick writes, I can share a comment about the Esoteric United Nations.
Okay, let's get you, Frederick. Okay. You're self-muted?
Yes. I was wondering if the goal of the Esoteric United Nations group will be a non-profit or non-government organization, then we could be linked to United Nations really. There is a special certification to be linked to United Nations, the ECOSOC. I will share, then we could impact the spiritual education inside United Nations.
Okay, well, this is something that we will want to look into. We do know there have been important spiritual initiatives within the United Nations which have spread around. And I'm remembering my arcane school days, back in the old days. We were an NGO, and Robert Mueller was undersecretary of something. He was in a high position, and Krishnamurti was still alive, and he kept on referring to Krishnamurti as the world teacher. So the world teacher idea was very strong spiritually at that time among quite a few within the United Nations, and I think we can expect that. So we will discuss with you some of the possibilities. We don't want to go too fast. Everything's stable as it goes, but taking advantage of whatever can be taken advantage of. So thank you for the thought. That's great. Okay. And Catherine, okay, law of magnetic impulse. Thank you. Page 109. Yeah, or the law of polar union, a very Libran type of law, which is about soul relationships and how to induce them. So you've answered Rebecca's question here. Great. All right, now look, friends, I know we could go on. You do have now in your chat box what Tuya and I and some others intend about the Esoteric United Nations. When I shouldn't say the, because there can be many esoteric approaches to strengthening the United Nations. And I don't want to say that this is the only one. It's one, okay? So, and we'll do the best with it that we can. But look, the hour is hastening on. And was there anything further there, Frederick? Your hand was still up. And so if there is something further, you can unmute yourself and speak. And if not, it just is that your hand is still up. Okay. All right, friends. It's so good to be working with you on these things. Look, we're not masters and we're not even high initiates here. But we do know something. And we've been taught over the years how to work with mantrams. We've been taught the power of visualization. We've been taught the power of meditation. We have something. And although it looks to many as if we would be doing nothing, we're not doing nothing. We are working interiorly. As Master Moria says, it's almost amusing when you think of this kind of situation. He says, half the world thinks, and the other half carries out the thought. Now, our thought should be more powerful than a lot of the thinking that goes on, because many of us have been trained over many years, and people who are newer to it are getting an intensive training in many ways through the interacting of groups and through such organizations as the Moria Federation, kind of internet expression of the University of the Seven Rays, and through the Arcane School and the School of Esoteric Studies. And, I could go on about these schools. We're getting some training. So let's put it to good use. That's all. And Tuya and I will be as careful and as systematic as we can be in setting up this kind of work in which there is definitely a lot of freedom, but also at the same time the chance to learn something about how the countries of the world function and what their needs are and what their abilities are and how their soul can truly emerge. Those nations whose soul can more fully emerge at this time, because nations are like people, Not everybody is ready to have that soul infusion, but they can always aim higher, and that's the goal. All right. If that's okay, and let me make sure that I've hit everybody. Yeah. All righty. There you go, Leslie. A pragmatic compliment. I think maybe in my next life, God help me, I'm going to have some earth signs, and then the situation will change. I already have one, and other people have many. So astrology does come into play. All right. Now let's have a little meditation. Well, this is a bit of a bridge. We were reading today about idealism and how it's temporary and how it's partial and how often I'm sorry, how often it ignores the whole picture. And we've been seeing that too, as in the United States, for instance, since I'm most familiar with it, how people with a narrow objective just ignore the facts. That's it. The facts will not bother us. We're living in a post-fact era, and pretty soon we're going to have someone announce that we're living in a post-truth era. So anyway, let's just see. Humanity is being tested. Two of the great democracies in the world, the U.S. and, there are many democracies, okay, but the U.S. and the U.K., which DK highlights, they are being severely tested. We're all going to be tested, all of humanity, and this is the time of testing. And what would you expect from Saturn except that testing? So let's go. This is what we'll think about, how investment in our own personality objectives and our own very limited ideals can lead to dishonesty, a dishonest bias, and a disregard, a deliberate overlooking of truth because we just want our narrow point of view to come through, as if anyone could win when something that is not true or is dishonest prevails, even if it's my dishonesty, my country's dishonesty. You know, winning has to be for all of humanity. And I think we've seen expression lately that I, the lower ego, win and you lose. I won't name names, but you know where it's coming from. It's widely spread and it's right now concentrated in the United States. I am the winner. I mean, what a narrow, petty point of view, which over time, as all fallibilities, will be corrected. So let's just have some silence at first. So in the silence, of course, lies the secret of synthesis and the perception of the sameness in being of all people gathered, and finally of all humanity, and finally of all things. So our protective formula with this, what DK is calling the cross of divinity here. So the three fingers of the Trinity. As the soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point, I never move. And that lighted cross forms before each one of us and before the group as a whole. One needs protection when dealing with the strongest area of illusion, considering that word generically, the strongest level of illusion which exists on the lower 18 subplanes. So obviously we have to approach this with humility, because there's so much to gain, but also so much to lose if we are swept off our feet and made to follow a glamorous path. So we'll focus matter of the etheric physical and the mind, the light of both coming together on the lower mental plane. And we call upon also, and importantly, soul light to fuse with and blend with the other lower lights. So we try to feel that soul light, which allows a special and unusual type of perception. And we bring it down onto the mental plane also, or onto the lower mental plane, and fuse all three lights: the light of matter, the light of mind, the light of the soul. So this is going to be our generating light. And we will say together, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. There are many different lights, and they increase in intensity and revelatory power, and we use light to reveal still greater lights. And then we enter the formula, which gives our position in relation to two worlds: a world in which reality exists and a world which is filled with subtle glamour. And as we say these words of the formula, we're going to be opening up our searchlight, the group searchlight, and we'll be turning it upon the astral plane. So here we go. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And we do reflect on the fact that when heavy or thick glamours prevail, then there is no real understanding. Now, we get into the real work here. We strengthen our beam as it has powerful work to do, both in our personal life, of course, and in the wider context. So we invoke the spiritual will, which is coming actually from the atmic plane and from the monad, strengthening our group beam, making it as invincible as possible. And we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And now we name the glamour we're going to be working with. We think about all the ill that it has brought to humanity, and then we use the words of power to help dissipate this glamour. So the glamour, they all cluster together, around the fact of mistaken identity. The glamour of the disregard for truth, because the desire for a certain point of view is too strong. the desire to see an ideal manifested is too strong. So we ignore truth. Now we just, over the next few weeks, all we have to do is turn on American television and we're going to see this shamelessly displayed. So let's use our words of power, and I'll keep this here and change it every time, but they all cluster together. So the power, we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of, well, it's narrow idealism leading to the disregard of truth and a dishonest bias. We don't want this glamour even to appear afresh. It's already here with us. We want no more appearance of this disregard for the truth and this narrow idealism which discounts other and often better points of view. We say the second word of power. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour from affecting humanity. And lastly, the power of our united light negates, or rather destroys, the life behind the glamour. I mean, energy, force must sustain it. And so our light, our beam, our fortified beam, disorganizes that vitality which sustains the glamour. Let's see that happen. So let us use our being. We're going to go into our 5 minutes of complete silence, and we'll visualize the light penetrating into the glamour, producing its weakening, its dissipation. 5 minutes of intensity of purpose to weaken and dissipate this assault on the truth. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, we are there. The appearance is prevented, the quality is negated, the life or vitality is weakened, destroyed. And in the blazing sun, truth is respected and truth is revealed. Now, friends, we withdraw our beam back to the mental plane. We redistribute it into the three locations. We can form it at any point according to the need. We continue to work. We work together and we continue to be on the lookout for our own glamours, which can negate effective work on this larger scale. So we'll sound the Om 3 times, affirming that beneficent work has been accomplished. Okay, friends, let's keep our eyes open. There's a lot of work to be done in these coming weeks as important decisions are being made which will affect everyone in all nations. There is a fight on. The predicted last-ditch fight of the forces of materialism is underway, and we have to counter that. Again, Saturday, that's tomorrow, we will have our 6:30 p.m. meeting for about an hour and a half to take further the work of our approach to an esoteric United Nations. And then we will find other times as well. Yes, Michael?
Other events. Treatise on Cosmic Fire in depth tonight at 8 p.m. GMT.
Yes, someone better show up for that, right? I'll try.
Yes.
Okay.
Soul of Nations tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. GMT.
It'll be a perfect time to, yeah, okay,
and that's
good.
a broadcast.
Yeah.
Broadcast for Attracting Money for Hierarchical Purposes, Sunday at 6 a.m. GMT.
Right.
The Secret Doctrine, Sunday at 8 p.m. GMT.
Okay.
And then Monday, the ingress of the sun into Aquarius around 2:55 p.m. GMT. So the meditation broadcast may start around 1:30. That will be sorted out.
Yeah, we'll sort that out. We will.
And the evening schedule for the Ask program next week, beginning Wednesday.
Thank you. It's helpful to hear it all in sequence that way. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, and thank you everybody for attending here, and we'll get this converted as soon as we can. And tonight, maybe we'll see some of you there for the continuation of commentary on cosmic fire. And then tomorrow in the evening, looks like evening, we'll be working with the esoteric United Nations and making sure everybody knows what's going on and feels stable in that work. So, you know, it's important. It's not the only thing going on, but it will give a view of humanity, of humanity's needs and the possible antidotes which so many of us have not had when we don't think in terms of the nations of the world. So Tuya and I are happy to kind of spearhead that, and we have other participators and reinforcements to help us along the way. So farewell for the moment. Lots of love and blessings from the whole team, and we'll see you soon. The silent minute, yeah, it's there. Rebecca is saying, for those who feel called to do so, the silent minute continues 9 p.m. GMT daily. Okay. For more information, go to Sydney Goodwill, and there is the link to sydneygoodwill.org.au and /. So quickly copy that and make sure you have the link to Sydney Goodwill. It's been in existence so long, you know, back in the days when I was doing a lot of work in Australia, which was already 30 years ago or more. It was a strong organization then and has persisted doing excellent work. Okay, copy that. Good. All right. Bye for now.